Hello, this is Red Robot, and welcome to the beginning of my coverage of the Tough Break update. And first of all, you might be wondering why I'm not playing on a Tough Break map. Well, there's a pretty simple reason for that. When I'm focusing on using new weapons with changed stats, I don't want to be worrying about a map that I'm not too familiar with and I'm not sure where the health packs are, etc. So I just played on an old map like Bound Blitz that I knew pretty well. Later on, I'll probably get into the Tough Break update maps a little bit more, but until then, I think it's not fair to play on them while I'm testing out new weapons. So, what changed with the Scout and the Tough Break update? Well, three main things and one general change that affects everyone. First is the Pretty Boys Pocket Pistol, then there's the Rap Assassin, the Mad Milk, and overall the switch speed change, which affects Scout a lot. And to start with, we're just going to talk about the Pretty Boys Pocket Pistol. Now, the change for this weapon was pretty huge, actually. It went from +3 health gained on hit to +5, and a buff like that just can't be ignored. It's massive. But at the same time, I found it still had all the same problems as the old Pretty Boys Pocket Pistol. Now, this weapon is really made for kind of that long-range spam. When you've got nothing else to do as Scout, your health's kind of low, shoot a few bullets at someone and regenerate a little bit of health. And with 3 bullets hit, that's as much health as Black Box, and that's great. If you can do that and gain your health, you're a happy Scout. However, when you're low health is when you need this weapon most, but at the same time, the damage vulnerability of 20% kicks in and will get you killed more than you would like. I found myself really reluctant to pull it out, and pulling it out was always a huge risk. There is reward in that risk at the same time, but I never really felt that it kind of made up for it. In order to try and abuse the health gain on the Pretty Boys as much as possible, I'm pairing it with the Atomizer in these clips. And the Atomizer is an amazing weapon. I really need to get better with it if I'm going to use it properly. I mean, this isn't the best showing of it, but it's pretty incredible when it comes to dodging spam, rockets and grenades. It's so easy to avoid them and to confuse your enemies with that one extra jump. Of course, the 10 damage you take on hit can easily be made up for with the Pretty Boys, so I figured the combo was pretty neat. Also, if you want to jump really high with 3 jumps and then pull out the Pretty Boys to negate all fall damage, it's another really interesting way you can use these weapons together. I felt it went pretty okay. I mean, the Pretty Boys as a whole is still a pretty janky weapon in my opinion, but I'm really glad they did buff it. It was like everyone agreed that it was awful, and I'm glad it saw some changes. As I said before, the weapon, you don't really want to pull it out. It feels so dangerous to do so. The 20% damage vulnerability, like, it was hard to get footage for it, basically. I mean, I recorded a live version of this video, and I thought it went pretty well. I made some good comments. I looked at it at the end. I didn't pull out the Pretty Boys once. I just talked about it. So I did force myself to pull out the weapon in situations where I probably shouldn't have. So this footage isn't 100% genuine, I guess you could say. But it is a situational weapon. It's that kind of, like, you're playing on a map, not many health packs, don't have a medic, you need a way to regenerate your health. It's not as good as the Black Box, nowhere near as reliable, but it does do the job if you're using it in the correct circumstances. It's not something you could just put on in it, just like in any loadout. It wouldn't be like a main weapon that you would always have, in my opinion. Alright, moving on to the Rap Assassin. And the Rap Assassin, in my opinion, didn't receive a buff or a nerf, it received a rework. They got stats that both improved it and made it weaker, and to the casual observer it might look like this weapon was just straight up buffed. It's gotten, you do more damage on your melee attack, it regenerates faster, the bauble explodes, deals a tiny amount of damage to everyone around it. Like, what's not to love? However, the fact that the bauble actually explodes means you can't pick it up again. There's no instant regeneration anymore if you get close to the ball, which can be a severe nerf in some situations. So I'm not sure if this buff, is overall a buff or a nerf. Just going to call it a rework for now. In these clips, I'm using it with the Criticola to try and get a whole bunch of damage and get even more crits with it than I already was. I think it might actually use the melee crit, algorithm to figure out if it has rolls a crit or not, because I was getting random crits with this all the time, way more than I should have if it was just a regular weapon. The Rap Assassin was already actually a pretty good weapon. I know lots of people thought it was really bad. Like, you look at its stats, it does barely no damage on hit, and the bauble does nothing if you miss, and a tiny amount of bleed. But for Scout, that has pretty much no long range options outside like the Guillotine and the Sandman. This weapon provides something really special for Scout that doesn't really get from any other places. And maybe he shouldn't even have, technically. All that aside though, the new Rap Assassin's increased recharge rate does mean that you'll be able to throw out more baubles. That is, if you weren't going to pick up the old ones. It's really hard to, judge if you were in a situation where you would be able to pick up a bauble from the previous update. So it's a hard weapon to kind of compare to the previous version. But, I don't know, I still like it. if it is a little bit of a nerf in terms of the bauble, I'm happy, because this weapon was really good and sort of didn't belong on Scout. It didn't really feel like a Scout weapon to me. But all up, I'm mostly fine with this change. It doesn't really do too much to anything. Now, for the Mad Milk change, I'm not even going to have a clip of this because it's so small and insignificant, but basically just if you use your Mad Milk to put out a teammate, it'll decrease the amount it takes to regen the next Mad Milk by like 20%, I think. So it just rewards you for putting out teammates. If you use your Mad Milk to put out your teammate, well, you've already kind of wasted it, so you don't get punished as much for playing like a team player, I guess. I'm really happy with anything that helps out team players, but man, Valve's just so keen to nerf Afterburn as much as they can, aren't they? Now for one of the biggest changes which affects Scout no matter what loadout you're using, that is the global switch speed buff. So every class switches weapons faster by default. And this affects Scout a lot. Do you remember me talking about the Fan of War if you've watched my previous videos? The Fan of War is a weapon that would be so much better if you could just switch to it faster, and now you can. So I might be trying that out, seeing how well you can do marking people for death and finishing them off with the Force of Nature should be a lot easier. Also, weapons that rely on switching for combos, like the Sandman Guillotine combo, that's going to be a lot stronger. Also, weapons that really rely on your secondary more, things like the Force of Nature, the Shortstop, you're going to be able to switch to your pistol to finish off enemies even quicker than before, so it's going to be a lot more viable. Although, every class and every player has this as well, so I'm not sure if that was going to factor in or not. Felt like a bit of a one-man army in these clips. My teammates weren't really anywhere in sight, and I was fighting like the whole team at once every time. Bit frustrating, but overall, the Scout changes didn't really change too much. Scout's already a pretty balanced class, in my opinion. He's might be tad on the strong side, but I don't really see Scout rage threads on TF2 every day. Anyway, that's all I got for you right now. Can't wait to cover the rest of the update, as well as the maps, things like contracts, and that in the future. I'll catch you in future videos. See you next time.